Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about Chapter 5, Household Measures. And if you recall, there's three different types of measurements. There's metric, which we want everything to eventually end up in the metric form. Household measures, which we are very common, but we don't like to use because they're not very accurate. And then there's the Avogadro system, and that's almost non-existent anymore. So we're going to focus on household measures today. And if you started memorizing your conversions from day one, like we talked about, this should be fairly easy for you. And we're going to do lots of practice with this because this is something that, because it requires memorization, you need a lot of practice for. So we're going to do lots of labs and lots of in-class activities to make sure that you get this. So the first problem on the tutorial page is half of a teaspoon. Well, if you know that 5 milliliters is 1 teaspoon, that's one of your conversions, then you can figure out that half a teaspoon is 2.5 milliliters, because 2.5 is half of 5. But this is a situation where if you need a equation to make this make sense, you can use our old friend ratio proportion. So if you know there are 5 milliliters in 1 teaspoon, then you know, well, how many milliliters are in half of a teaspoon. So that's how you can figure that out if you're the kind of person who just really needs an equation to solve the problem. The second one talks about fluid ounces. Now remember, the ounces are the one measure that can be either weight or volume. So you can have a 2-ounce bag of snacks, or you can have 2 ounces of a drink. And it's the only measurement that is either liquid or solid. So 2 fluid ounces. Well, 1 ounce is 30 milliliters. So if we wanted to do it that way, 1 ounce is 30 milliliters. So 2 ounces is X milliliters. And again, we can cross multiply. So 2 times 30 divided by 1. And the answer is going to be 60. Or you can just do, okay, 30 milliliters is 1 ounce. So 2 milliliters is, or 2 ounces is 60 milliliters. So this one, 15 milliliters is how many teaspoons? Well, we said up here, 5 milliliters is 1 teaspoon. So 15 milliliters would be 3 teaspoons. So now I threw you a curve here. If there's 3 teaspoons, how many tablespoons is that? So again, this is why you have to memorize these conversions. 3 teaspoons is 1 tablespoon. And again, if we want to convert everything to metrics to kind of get rid of this confusion. Another thing that's pretty important in this chapter is converting pounds to kilograms. And we use this quite often because there's dosage ranges where a patient gets so many milligrams of a drug for each kilogram of body weight. So if we have pounds and we want to go, and this is the notation for pounds, if we want to go 2 kilograms, we divide by 2.2. So 5 pounds divided by 2.2 is 2.27, and so on. So then the question comes, well, where do we round with this? Well, if we're talking about somebody's weight, if we're talking about an infant who only weighs 5 pounds, we get really specific. So we would probably read this as 2.27 or maybe 2.3 pounds. With neonates, we'd probably actually do it in grams because they're so small. But if we were measuring something because we were going to make a large amount of an ointment or some such, 2.3 pounds is probably a reasonable estimate. So it kind of depends on what we're measuring. And again, you know, if in practice, you'll start to learn that. But if you're talking about certification test or some other test, it's going to be multiple choice. So you're going to pick the best answer, and it shouldn't be so close that that's difficult. this one kind of snuck in here. It's a metric problem, but it's here, so let's do it anyway. 100 milligrams, how many grams? Well, remember, if we've got milligrams, we're going to grams. 1, 2, 3. So 100 milligrams is 1 gram. Now we have grains. Grains is one of those odd measurements that usually aspirin, phenobarbital, very few things are actually measured in grains. But 1 grain is 60 milligrams. So 3 grains is how many milligrams? Or if you know 1 grain is 60 milligrams, 60 times 3, 180. And remember, grains are 60 to 65 milligrams per grain. Most of the time we use 60 for that calculation, but sometimes the problem does use 65. Again, if it's multiple choice, pick the one that is closest to 60. If nothing seems like it's coming up right, try the problem with 65. But I really doubt that you're going to see this kind of a problem on the certification exam because it is so flexible. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Okay, so this problem also discusses grains. Half of a grain. Well, we just said a grain is 60 milligrams, so half of that is 30. Don't really even need a equation for that. Here's a question where it says 2 ounces apothecary. That's a weight because it's asking you, it says apothecary, it doesn't say fluid ounce, and it's asking you for grams. So 2 ounces apothecary is 60 grams because 1 ounce is 30. So 2 ounces is 60. Okay. The next question. How many milligrams of phenobarbital are in 1 tablet of 2 grain phenobarbital? How many milligrams in a grain? 30. So 2 grains is 60 milligrams. Okay. Mother starts to give a child 3 teaspoons of a medication and finds out she only has a tablespoon. I know, weird problem, right? Who doesn't have teaspoons and tablespoons? And we would make sure that the child was given a dosing spoon that, will help with that, so that they get an accurate dose. But 3 teaspoons, if you remember on the other page, is 15 milliliters. 15 milliliters is a tablespoon. So 1 tablespoon. And this one, physician writes an order for an ounce of an antacid QID. QID is 4 times a day. AC before meals. And HS at bedtime. So 4 times a day. So when the patient gets home, the only utensil available is a teaspoon. So how many teaspoons of the antacid should the patient take? And just a kind of a reminder here, with a problem like this, it's asking you how many teaspoons should the patient take. And some people get confused when they read this problem of, are we talking about teaspoons per dose or per day? When in doubt, for me, you can put it both. You can put per dose, per day. But again, if you've got a multiple choice, one's going to make sense and one's not. So, if it comes across way too low or way too high, do the problem again and focus on dose versus day or day versus dose. So, if we've got an ounce and it's asking how many teaspoons. Well, this is where, in order to get from here to there, it's probably going to be easier to change everything to metrics. So if an ounce is 30 milliliters and we want to know how many teaspoons, we would divide by 5 milliliters because 5 milliliters is a teaspoon. So 30 divided by 5 is how we're going to get that answer. If you wanted to do it the other way, you could do, okay, so there's 30 milliliter, let's try it this way. There's 30 milliliters in 1 ounce. So how many milliliters in, yeah, see, you get stuck. You can't do it because these are two different things. So I would take everything to the same metric system. And then you can go back and forth all day long. You can go from ounces to cups to pints to teaspoons, tablespoons, if everything is changed into milliliters. And like I said, that's why I wanted you to start on the conversions early on, because that's something we've got to be able to do fairly quickly. And again, our labs are going to help us with that. And if you need extra help with this, and I think part of our class is going to be really good at metrics and not so good with these measurements, the household measurements, and some of us are going to be the opposite. Really good with the household measurements and not so good with the metrics. So, you know, I encourage you to work together in groups when we're trying to solve some of these problems. And if you need extra help, just let me know and I'll be glad to help you. This is one of those things that going to the Learning Commons for tutoring probably isn't going to help you much. They're going to get to a point where they don't understand the problem. So please feel free to let me know if you need some additional help with this, and I'll be glad to slow down the pace of the class so that everybody gets to be real comfortable with it. Okay, see you next time when we talk about parental calculations. Bye.